Hi, my name is Soila, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice month off. I know I did. Turns out I actually love having a life. No, but it was actually a really good decision to kind of take a step back and see how I was doing and do other things besides living in the Heartland world. So I'm back, but I'm sort of coming back lightly because I don't want to just, take time off and then return to exactly how things were before because, that's not going to work. So today I'll be having a guest. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give two quick updates since we last talked. I think we didn't really talk about season 17 being confirmed last time, right? But right now, the situation looks very promising. There have been a couple of things that always sort of lead into them confirming the season. Yeah, I'm going to put them in the YouTube description box so you can check them out yourself. But so far, no official confirmation, but it's looking very, very promising. So that's something to look forward to. And another thing, I don't think we talked about this either, but Heartland is nominated for a fan favorite award at the Canadian Screen Awards. And this is completely fan voted award because Heartland wasn't even among the shows that were nominated at first. So you could nominate a show yourself, and us Heartland fans got Heartland to top 10, and then they narrowed down it, I think, to 5 shows or something like that. And now it's top 3, and Heartland is there. If you feel like it, you can vote every day 100 times. And I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it's just like tap, tap, tap 100 times. And then you've done your part in getting Heartland to win this award that we've been so close to having for years now. So yeah, that's exciting. But yeah, let's move on to the actual episode. So today I have Aidan Moreno returning, and he was kind enough to have a couple of hours just to talk to me, and we had a lovely talk. And because I feel like there was a lot of things I wanted to include, I am actually gonna post these in like 30-minute parts because I feel like people like the shorter episodes compared to like longer ones. So that is a good way to put out these episodes. And also, full transparency, I feel like this is a softer way to ease back in than just doing a new episode every week. So this month, April, is going to be Aidan April, I guess. So every Saturday, you're going to get a new part of this. And I hope you listen because I had a really lovely time talking to Aidan, and we talked about all kinds of topics, Heartland and, his life and music and everything. So this first part is going to be about sort of Aidan's beginnings in the acting world and who he is as a person. I'll meet you here on the flip side. So I hope you enjoyed the first part of this interview. Back by popular demand, today I have Aidan Moreno, aka Rick Adderly, joining me. Welcome back to Heart to Heartland. How are you
Thanks for having
feeling?
me. I'm good. I'm glad to be back. I've listened pretty much on and off every week. So I love hearing everyone's comments. And thank you for keeping it going. How's season 2 been for you?
Good, but kind of exhausting because, I've been doing it alone, and it's like a weekly basis thing and kind of a lot of work on top of everything. But, I've been
It
dealing
reminds me
with
of
it.
when I did my lives at first.
Mm,
And maybe you'll understand it, but it's fun and it's exciting. But then when
yes.
you set up an expectation for others, then it sort of takes some of the fun, even though it still is
Yeah.
exciting. and it's doing something that you love and talking about, you feel this need to do it. So it's like, oh, what am I gonna? So well
Yeah.
done, bravo from
Yeah.
me and all of the fans.
And it's like when I sit down and, just talk to the camera, it's like, okay, I've done that part, but then I have to edit. So it's like
Yes.
a longer process in that way. So I'm like, I'm so over this episode by the time that it comes out. Well, it's been a year since we talked, a little over a year, because you were here after season 15, I think. Yeah.
Maybe.
And this year, season 16 was a big year for Rick. But before we go to that, how has your year been, like on a personal level? Like, because you
It's
had
been
an album coming out, and
it's been ups and downs. I think we're all sort of getting back to this new normal, right?
yeah,
But my new normal is completely different to the one before the pandemic. Like now I'm on a show in a stable capacity. So it's still trying to make that fit into my life.
yeah,
So not being able to travel as much. I used to love to travel, especially back home. I used to be able to go and see my grandparents and my mum more. So it's figuring out that balance. My dogs here are getting older. It's just things like that. Like life is really sort of catching up with me, but that's being an adult, right? And it's
yeah.
time to grow up. But no,
I know. Yeah.
it's definitely been fun to have that stability from Heartland. It's also been fun to do more of a dramatic side to the character, and also to spend more time with different members of the cast this year. So building those connections and relationships has been fun. Music, I think I had a big learning curve on that this year as well, because you've probably heard me say it wasn't what I wanted, and I should never have accepted what I was like, well, that's what it's going to be. I need to own the space that I'm in. I knew what it could have been, and it wouldn't have taken that much more. But instead, me being me, a people pleaser, was, oh, that's okay, that's fine. And then it's like,
Relatable.
well, why did you do that? So I'm always learning, which I think is so important for us all to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still learning with acting, with music, and just basically living life. I'm still trying to figure this out. But no, yes, 1 year off. This is the next. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I don't think we talked about this the last time you were on, but how did you even get started on acting? Because I think you've said that you got started a little later on in your life, so it wasn't like your child star or something like that.
Never. Like never in a million years was it even in my peripheral vision of what I wanted to do. I think growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s in the UK, pretty working class sort of environment, I was always sort of trying to fit in and be smaller than what I was in order to get by, because it was at a time where it wasn't okay to be gay. I mean, gone leaps and bounds still, but literally back then you literally had to hide it. I didn't come to anyone until I was 17.
Yeah, and the AIDS,
Yeah, like we had all that
situation
stigma
was,
still coming from the 80s.
yeah.
So it was a huge shift in mindsets towards anyone in the community. So I was, even though you would assume I would be into drama and music and performing, I wasn't. I used to eat my feelings up until I was 16. I used to be huge, maybe from 11 to 16. And so, yeah, acting was never a thing. And then when I moved to Canada, on my work visa, it was one of the only jobs I could get due to the temporary work visa I was on, which was background work, because it wasn't contracted. It was done on if you want this job, you can take it. It's for one day. There was no contracts involved, and you didn't need to be a permanent resident. So it was really, really out of necessity that I did it. I'd only get like $100 a day. I was there for like 12 hours. I couldn't join the union because I wasn't a permanent resident. So I was doing it for like a year because it was the only job I could get. And that really showed me for the first time that I'm going to have to work, because by that point of my life, I hadn't really had to do anything because I'd gone to university and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, I could do this, but I'm not doing this part. I want to do that part.
Yeah.
And I really started to see how it all worked. It was the best university for acting, being on a set, doing background, because you got to see actors doing what they do, but also what the director did, what the producers did. You got to understand what the grips did, where the marks were, where to stand, about lighting, about the rehearsals, about every little piece of the puzzle. And then once I decided, okay, I want to do this, I then did so many student films and so many like short, unpaid, non-union films, which were awful. I hope none of them ever,
I was
ever,
gonna say, if
ever,
anyone finds them, let me know.
please burn them. But I am so grateful for them because it made me not only understand where I needed to improve or what I didn't understand yet, but also the confidence of believing in my choices as an actor. Because I look back and I did this really low budget non-union film, and I remember the director, she'd be telling me, no, you need to say it like this, you need to move like this. And I look back and it was the most awful thing I've ever seen in my life. But I should have said, no, I'm the actor, I'll take your direction, but interpret it in my own way, because you still have to stand by your own body of work, right? So there were so many different parts of that that made me become a better actor. And then I took classes, of course, and classes are give and take, I think, personally, in acting, because it's kind of a subjective industry where it's down to you and how you interpret it. So I used to go to different classes and cherry pick bits of information of how to use it as an actor. And I think it's one of those professions where you've either got it or you don't, and then you sort of perfect it. And then it just teamed with the opportunity. And then luckily, someone like my accent, that's literally why I got an agent. And then I just started going to union auditions. And it took a good 2 years, which to a lot of people maybe isn't a lot. That's a good old apprenticeship, really. That's, you know, probably how long people go to acting school for. So I think there is definitely a hierarchy with actors, because when I say I've not been to a professional acting school, there's like a lot of snobbery, or maybe I started later, so I don't deserve to be where I am. But I talk it down, but I worked bloody hard. You know, I was going out at 5 o'clock in the morning for no pay, doing student films with people that were learning themselves. So I was there for hours, acting in nonsense. Like
and it's like you get hired for the reason the people who hire you,
right,
like
it's how they see it.
They see like, okay, that's the person for the role, like nothing else should matter at
I
that point.
found a lot of when I started going to the classes, especially here in Toronto, I tried to make more friends, because I thought I'm going to need people within this industry to understand it and to lean on and support, and vice versa. But I quickly figured out, I don't know if it was my age, but everyone that was your friend was actually just wanting you for either information, comparison, or direct competition. So if you were friends with a guy the same age and you got excited about an audition, they'd be like, oh, that's great. And then they'd be on the phone to their agent going, why haven't I got this audition? And then you'd see the casting room and you'd be like, how did you get here?
You're like, you son of a
or congratulations, where did you get that audition? And it's like, you know, just, I get it. There's a lot of rejection in the industry, but I think from the way I grew up and the way that my life was going, I'd had so much rejection already that I built a thicker skin. So every no, yes, at first it hurt a little, but I sort of just dealt with it so well and was like, well, that's their loss, or I wasn't right for that. That wasn't meant to be. And some actors just don't grasp that sometimes a no is just nothing personal. It's just someone else fits better. You need a tough skin, but you also need to do the work. And I've just learned to sort of be a lone soldier and find your sort of people on a set.
They're with you as a team.
They're your peers, you know, and it's a shame to say that, but that's what I've learned from the industry, because it's not a very transparent industry. So it sort of breeds that mentality of everyone against each other. So it's not the individual's fault. It's just the industry that it is. and it sort of chews you up and spits you out if you don't understand it. And I understood it quite quickly.
Well, that's good because, obviously you're on Heartland now, so we get to enjoy your performances. But do you remember your like first audition that led to somewhere? And like, did you feel that, okay, maybe I might book this role? Like, I think I did good.
I started auditioning for professional production, union production, sooner than I should have, in my opinion, looking back with hindsight. Of course, I wouldn't change it now because it taught me things. But my first audition that didn't lead to anything, but I remember it vividly, was for a professional casting director. And it was something with Jason Momoa in it. But it was to play a Cockney guy, if anyone doesn't know what that, in East London accent, working class. And I think it was a prison or maybe like a pub, whatever. And I went in, and I think I'm amazing at doing Cockney accents, like amazing. So I went in and was like, whoa, you all right? And so I did this Cockney accent and thought I was amazing. And then the casting director turned around and went, nice try, but I don't think you can do a British accent. Because again, here, people assume that you're not British, and so I was like, well, what do you mean? And this is me being me at that point, thinking I knew everything and that you could have a dialogue with some casting. And so I was like, well, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I don't think you can pull that accent off. And I was like, I can definitely pull that accent off. She was like, no, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And that was it. And then I was like ushered out of the room. And I was mortified, and I've never seen that casting director again because she must have learned after that I was English.
Did you have like an identity crisis or something?
Yeah, I was like, how dare, like,
you don't know what I'm.
I told that story for about a year after. I couldn't get over it. I was like, how dare she say, oh, I can't do a Cockney accent?
But also, like, British accent is kind of like broad.
Yeah, there's so many different ones.
It's not just the BBC.
That made me learn very quickly, though, that sometimes the person on the other side of the desk, of course, in their own right, know what they're doing, but sometimes it is an opinion and not to take it to heart. So that was my first big, like, wait a minute, like, I thought that was good. She didn't. We're never going to agree, but don't let that get you down. So that was my first ever professional audition.
Yeah.
And then the first one where I thought I would ever get it was and I didn't, was I was flown out to Vancouver. So that was a big deal for me. I hadn't done anything at that point apart from student films and stuff. And it was for Jennifer Connelly. And it's that show where it's on a train. I don't know what it's called.
Is it Snowpiercer? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
So, but the TV show. And I auditioned for this guy on the train. And I think it was an Irish accent. I'm sure it was. But it was the first time ever I thought, oh my God, you were really good. Like, I genuinely walked out and thought, oh my God, yes. And I sounded butch, and it was like believable. Then I had the phone call 2 days later. And when an agent calls, that's always a good sign. When they email, it's always like, you've not got it. I got the phone call, and it was with the branch of the Vancouver office. And they were like, how old are you in real time? And I was like, well, why does that matter? As long as you're over 18, they legally aren't allowed to know your age because it doesn't matter, because it's about what you play on screen, But the agent was like, yeah, but they're asking, so you're going to look like a bit of if you don't tell them how old you are. So however how old I was at that point, probably 28. I don't know how old I was, but they told us, and the person was to play a 40-year-old. And so I didn't get it. But before they knew how old I was, they were considering it.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I was like, why do you want to know? Because if you're buying that I can be 40, then just leave it there. I mean, look at Grandpa Jack. He's 125, isn't he?
Yeah.
So that was, again, another learning curve of like, there are so many different pieces of the puzzle that can make you not get a role that are out of your control. But no, there was never one where I thought I've got this. Never. Not even Heartland. I never thought I had it. So even when I had the call back, I was just like, nah.
You're like, I'll believe it when I'm on set.
When you get the contract that you're like, someone's made a boo-boo here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's never been like a big moment where I've been like, yeah, I've got this. And I fully admit I'm still blagging my way through this, but openly saying that because I want to learn, I want to get better. And I think maybe that's why I am where I am, because people see that in me, that I'm willing to learn, that I've got my eyes open, that I'm not full of myself, and I'm willing to make mistakes to learn from them. So yeah.
Funnily enough, the next question I had in mind was relating to your accents and stuff like that. What special skills are in your acting resume? So is it Cockney accent, Irish accent?
Let me pull up 1 minute.
Because I know you've done writing lessons in case, you
They've randomly not put them on though.
Yeah, but you're like prepared. You can be like,
I am so prepared. Like, it's actually becoming annoying now because I'm like, there was a moment where I was like, I don't need to do this much. I don't need to be this good.
You're gonna just, ask them to send a horse to pick you up to work because you're like,
just so I can use my skills.
Might as well.
On my day off, the Wrangler, just like standing up. Right, here we go. Portfolio.
Because this is always interesting to me because I know
special skills.
People lie about this stuff.
I have no special skill apart from accents and dialects. I have RP, so received pronunciation, which is to anyone posh British. Which, to be honest, maybe I could. I don't know. Irish. I swear I'm amazing at it. My Irish grandmother says I'm terrible at it. Once Michelle Morgan had an audition maybe 2 years ago for something Irish. She swears to God, I lost her that role because I coached her on how.
But you're still friends, right?
And then I've got German on here.
I was gonna ask, like, let's hear it.
Now, Russian, which again, I think that is a bit of a push. And then general American. Now, I did used to have Scottish on here, but I asked them to take it off because maybe 2 years while I was doing Heartland, I did a show which is about plane crashes. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called different things in different countries. But I was like the traffic controller in Scotland. And I had to say, like, so obviously, if you're doing an accent in just a normal dramatic scene, you could maybe get away with doing it sort of okay. But when you're having to do a clear voice into a microphone, pretend to be an air traffic controller, every syllable is being heard. So I was like, 8380. Like, and I sound, it was the most offensive accent I've ever heard when I watched it back. So please nobody look at what show that is or ever try and find it, because I watched it once and was mortified.
Well, the last time you were on the podcast, I taught you a couple of sentences in Finnish.
Hey.
So yeah, so you can add those in. And if you ever need like a coach, I'm your girl.
I think I would definitely need one, because I'm one of those people that thinks I can do them until I'm there, and then I'm like,
what is speaking? I don't know.
But yeah, I've got no other random special skills because honestly, I don't have any.
Well, have you considered like doing like archery or sword fighting or whatever?
I'm on those people, like at school. I was lucky to be someone who had to put in minimal effort and passed with quite high marks. So I've generally been one of those people, like with the acting journey, as much as, yes, I've had to put a bit of work in. I think that's why people get annoyed with me, because I've got a higher return as opposed to my investment. I think I put in a lot for me, but to others probably who've been doing it for like 15 years and still doing a student film, I'm probably really annoying.
You're like the Mickey Mouse, because, everything is just effortless.
Yeah, like archery and stuff, I feel like I would never get a role like that anyway. That's how my mind works. Why
but you
bother?
Never know. Like, it's not in there.
But then I feel like maybe then they pay me to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I just don't know what special skills I have apart from talking. And I can run and I can go on a bike. That's it. And that's not really special, is it?
Well, you have writing now, but I don't know. Like what type of stuff people usually have in
People
there?
put like gymnastics
Oh yeah,
and um,
ballet or
combat fighting. You can do like a combat fighting course.
mm,
But again, I just don't think anyone would buy that. And the only time I've ever had to do any sort of combative work was on Supernatural. I had a stunt double, but the thing that I had to do, it was sort of like you got paid to go in the day before and do like, it was almost like a dance routine
mm,
where like you learned the steps.
yeah,
You get what I mean? So you weren't actually fighting, it was more like dancing. And
yeah.
so that was all pretty, it's pretty straightforward because they don't let you do the more intensive stuff anyway. Like even
Mm,
with riding on Heartland, even if you are the most competent rider, they're still not going to let you gallop across the field. Do
yeah,
you get what I mean?
yeah.
As soon as you go into canter, they'll be like, stop right there, young man. You're not insured for that.
You're
So
like, I
it's
was just getting started. What the hell?
right. So it's, I mean, maybe I should add it on there. I'd just be concerned if I put like Western or English riding, then the next minute it'd be like, Yellowstone have got this role. You say nothing, but you do this intensive, like,
Well, would you say no?
on horseback. I feel like I would because on a huge production, they would be more, I would waste so much money and they probably sue me. So
I'm
I would
saying
probably say no.
put them in there and see what happens because, you never know. Well, we've talked about your songwriting and, acting, but how do you express yourself creatively in other ways? Like, is that the main thing you do when you feel like, putting something out there?
Yeah, I'm sort of ADHD with things. I'm very intensive on one thing at a time. I'm very bad at delegating, so I can't have loads of things on the go. That's why with the second album, that's why I put it out when I wasn't finished with it because I set a certain amount of time for it and
Yeah.
didn't want to do it once I'd started filming. So that was that sort of mentality of why. But creatively, I mean, just things like during the lockdown, I like even though this is a rental, like I completely like hope the landlord's not watching like reno this.
I have them on the line. This is an
But
intervention.
I can go from one extreme to another. Like now I couldn't even bear picking up a paintbrush. But at that moment, it was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So I'm always trying to create something, but I wouldn't say anything specifically. No, I'm just no, just music and acting, I think.
Well, how does did you write when you were younger, or did the writing of songs just sort of happen suddenly and you were like, wait a minute, I'm kind of good.
In my bedroom, I did used to, like when you used to get the CDs
Yeah,
and maybe sometimes on the third track, they'd have like the instrumental.
yeah.
I do remember vividly like sitting there and writing a new version of a song and maybe two or three times, bless my mother, asking to perform it. And that was when I was very young. And
Mm.
then my brother maybe saw me do it the third time and I was mortified and never did it again. But I did used to have like a little songwriting book. Oh my God, I did. Sorry, now I vividly remember because I had a keyboard and it used to have like pre-programmed things and I had a whole catalog of oh my God. Yes, I did. Thank you for making me remember.
It's coming back.
Yeah, so I had a little book with songs in it. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing.
This year on Heartland, Katie had kind of a journey like that. So
Right.
I'm just like curious if that's kind
And
of
I did
what
used to write,
you.
I used to love writing short stories when I was
Mm,
younger. I was a big English nerd. I used to find myself in my room reading books a lot. That was my childhood. Books and television and Spice Girls. That's all I did. That was how I
literally same.
right. Like I wouldn't go. That's why I gained a lot of weight in my teenage years as well, because all I did, I just didn't want to go out. I
Mm.
felt safe at home in my bedroom, reading books. And I used to have the old VHS, and every time the Spice Girls were on television, I'd be recording it, watching it back aimlessly. My poor mother.
Well, at
But yeah,
least you were, staying out of trouble and all that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, as I got older, things changed. But
you kind of, you know,
I definitely made up for it as I
yeah,
got
made
older.
up.
But no, I used to love creative writing and anything like that. I was more of the literature side as opposed to at school like maths and science. I wasn't that sort of guy, even though I passed all those subjects. I loved English because I felt like you could justify anything as long as you made enough points about it. That's what I loved about English. Like you could just write and write and write and write and write, you know? So I suppose I've always been creative in that way. And then I took a big gap after university because I was sort of sick of it.
Yeah.
I was so tired because I had to read. And I sort of, you know, I was like a spoiled brat. I was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to do that. So for years, I didn't read. And I still, to this day, I'm ashamed to say, find it very difficult to read a full book, which is so bizarre considering I look at how much I love reading.
Yeah.
I buy books. They look pretty. But
Me
then
too. And it's like I've been trying to do audio books sometimes, but then sometimes I'm like, you know, because I get so caught up on some sentences, I'm like, well, that's an interesting way to put it. And then I'm like, what's happened in the last 5 minutes? Because I've zoned out.
You've got too many things going on. I think life happens.
Yeah.
That's my excuse. The older I've got, the more I've got going on.
Yeah.
So as much as we both probably need the time to sit down and read a book, because then you're sort of out of this world and you're just immersed in words and imagination. But we've got so much on the go that it feels kind of selfish, even though I know it's not. That's what it feels like to me, to sit down and take that time. But on the flip side, I'll sit there and watch 10 hours of something on Netflix.
Yeah, because I'm like, reading a book for 3 hours, you know, sounds like a long time. I could be doing something else, but then it's like, you're not doing anything.
But yeah, maybe that should be our little pact. We should make a pact together. We need to read at least a book before the start of summer.
I have one book
I feel that's a realistic goal, right?
Yeah, because I even bought one in English just so I can, you know, always learn. But it has like strange accent, some kind of southern.
Oh, so they've written it.
Yeah, so it takes time. I'm like, what are they saying? So, but I'm trying, you know, I'm trying to, you know.
Yeah, because I suppose that would be because then you've sort of got to stop in that person's voice and be like, and then if it's not your first language, then be like, what are they actually saying?
Yeah. So it's a slow process, but you know, it's also a challenge in a way to kind of understand something that I've never had to understand before. So So earlier we talked about, you know, getting to our age and kind of learning things along the way, but what life lesson took you a long time to learn that you've now kind of been like, oh, like I wish, you know, I would have understood something earlier, or just kind of like.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I'm not even going to pretend. I mean, you've probably gathered by this interview so far. I am so full of the gift of the gab, but you can still tell I'm still making it up as I go along. I'm still trying to figure life out. I suppose the biggest lesson that I've learned so far is that you're always going to be too much for some people or not enough. So it's less about not caring, but putting so much emphasis on what others think, but being true to me, living in the moment for me, being authentic in my own body and my own feelings. And then the people that get you will get you.
Yeah, you'll attract them in a way because you're being yourself.
But not putting so much on how other people respond to you or what you think they want you to be, because that has literally been my entire life, trying to fit into this model of what I should have been. And the more I'm learning and understanding this world that we're living in, it's those molds that are set by society are formed on a lot of BS from centuries of straight white male trying to control everyone around him. And it's a very harsh reality to understand all that. But it's made me come to terms with things like my Irish grandmother, who, God bless her, she still doesn't know that I'm gay, which is obviously very bizarre. But I butch it up slightly when I see her. But you know, to this, I've always wrestled with that she doesn't know, and does she need to know? And then you go down that rabbit den of like, well, does she need to know? Does it affect? And it's just like, but
Yeah.
why can't I just say it? Why is it such a thing? But then I understand how she grew up, what she thinks and what she believes. And then at first I used to get mad. Why does she think like that? How stupid of her to think like that. Use critical thinking, think beyond that. It's a book.
Yeah.
Like I could have been Enid Blyton. Like I'm not going to set my life to it. Like all of this stuff. But then it's understanding where other people come from, why they see through a certain lens. I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm trying to say that you can't always get mad at people because they don't see the same thing that you see. I just know that she wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, so it's like, do I even bother, you know?
Yeah, it's like a hard thing to sit with me because I feel like I have always hidden who I am, always. And it's made me disconnect from my family for years. It's made me disconnect from almost every relationship I've ever had because we've got this thing inside us that we're told a part of us is not accepted. And even, I suppose, deep down, I've wrestled with even me thinking that.
Well, it's internalized, stuff because it's everywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, but as I say, I need to be more authentic with me of who I am and realizing, as I say, I'm too much or not enough. So just be me.
Yeah, exactly.
And if people don't like it.
Exactly. Okay, so that was the first part of the Aidan Moreno Returning to Heartland podcast. Next week, we're going to get more into Heartland and we're going to talk more about Rick as a character and Aidan's perception of the character and all that good stuff. So I hope you tune in next week as well. And till next time, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.